Well, welcome to my OBU. My OBU being my outside broadcast unit. I've come for a walk today. Not far from where I live, there's a river, the River Gipping, which runs from somewhere west of Ipswich, through Ipswich, through the centre of Ipswich. Not far from where I live, the river is reasonably big. Not that you'll know from where I'm sitting at the moment, because you can't see the river, it is just over there. It's about 20 yards away. Behind me is an industrial estate. That's not so nice, but it's lovely to come and walk by the river. Just to my right up here is a railway line, and if a train comes along, a goods train, I will have to pause the video because it's very noisy. Anyway, I thought I'd come out today while I had a window of opportunity. And that window of opportunity being the fact that it's dry at the moment, pleasantly warm, bright. But when I look at the weather forecast online, oh, that's another railway line which is not so far away, but that's a passenger line which trains go quite quickly. Doesn't take very long for them to pass. Unlike this goods line here, where the trains are very big and they're very slow. But when I look at my weather forecast on my phone here, the window of opportunity I've referred to is the fact that it tells me that at 12 o'clock noon today, there's a 50% chance of rain, and then it increases. At 1 o'clock, there is a 90% chance of even more rain. The time now I'm recording this is just gone 10 o'clock in the morning, so according to the weather forecast, I have a couple of hours before I can expect rain. But we interpret the weather, don't we? We look at the weather, we look at our forecasters, who sometimes get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. But it's a difficult task, so I don't criticise them over much. But we look up, we see the clouds or no clouds. We look up and we see in the distance where there are clouds, we can see the rain falling down, and we think, rain is coming. We know how to interpret the signs of the weather. We talk about the weather here in the UK quite a lot. I don't know about other countries whether they do, but certainly here in the UK, it's a very popular subject of conversation, probably because the weather is temperamental. It's unpredictable very often, isn't it? Well, Jesus, when he was walking here on the earth, he made a reference to the weather. And I looked at this morning when I was at home before I came out, and in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, the Gospel of Luke chapter 12, it tells us this, from verse 54 through to verse 56. It says, "And he," that's Jesus, "and he was also saying to the crowds, when you see a cloud rising in the west, immediately you say, a shower is coming. And so it turns out. And when you see a south wind blowing, you say, it will be a hot day. And it turns out that way. You hypocrites! You know how to analyze the appearance of the earth and the sky, but why do you not analyze this present time?" Now, that's the New American Standard Version, which uses the verb to analyze. Other translations say you know how to interpret the signs or the appearance of the earth, or you know how to discern the earth and the sky, what the weather is. You know how to do this, but why do you not interpret or analyze or discern this present time? Well, what was that present time? Well, the Lord Jesus makes a reference to this. We turn over in our Bibles a few pages. I have it marked here to Luke chapter 19. So we go from Luke chapter 12 over to Luke chapter 19, and we see that in verse 41 onwards, this is what Luke tells us. In Luke 19 verse 41, it says, when he, that's Jesus, when he approached Jerusalem, he saw the city and wept over it, saying, if you had known this day, even you, the things which make for peace, but now they have been hidden from your eyes, for the days will come upon you when your enemies will throw up a barricade against you and surround you and hem you in on every side, and they will level you to the ground, and your children within you, and they will not leave in you one stone upon another, because you did not recognize the time of your visitation. The time of your visitation. That was what Jesus was talking about. Specifically, excuse me, here, a time in the future when the Romans would come and they would besiege Jerusalem, attack Jerusalem, and they would destroy the temple. But Jesus was talking about the time when he was on earth. It was the time of his visitation, the time when he, God, in the person of a man, he visited the earth and he lived on the earth. So when we go back to Luke chapter 12 and we see there, why do you not discern or interpret or analyze this present time? It was the time of the visitation of God. It was as if he was saying, you see my miracles, you hear my preaching, you hear the claims that I'm making about myself, but you don't understand, you don't interpret them, you don't analyze them or discern them. That's what Jesus was saying. It was a special time, very special time, when God himself came to earth. The previous time, of course, we look back into Genesis, the early chapters, chapter 3, when God was walking with Adam and Eve in the cool of the day. He was walking with them, he abided on earth with them. And then, of course, the second time was when the Lord Jesus here, he came to earth. I'm going to skip over, for the sake of time, the theophanies or the Christophanies, when there was an appearance of Jesus in scriptures between Genesis 3 and the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. I'm just conveniently ignoring those for the sake of brevity. But the next major appearance of Jesus was, of course, what we read about in Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, when he visited the earth. But the people, they rejected him. They didn't want to interpret. Well, for the most part, they rejected him. There were some who accepted him. Yes, there were, absolutely. But for the most part, he was critical of the religious authorities, the religious hierarchy, who were having things their own way, and no matter what, they did not want to take on board, to understand the preaching of Jesus, the miracles of Jesus, because he told them the truth about himself, and he told them the truth about themselves as well, that they needed to be sorted out. They needed to turn to their Messiah, because they were hypocrites. I think Jesus used that expression there in verse 56 of Luke 12. You hypocrites, you are play acting, as in being in a theatre, you're playing a part. It's not reality. You are portraying yourselves as being very godly people, but inside you were not willing, you were dirty, unclean inside. And here in Luke chapter 12, in relation to Jesus talking about the signs of the weather, he was saying, well, you're good at that, but actually you're not good at all at understanding the sign of the time, the very sign which you should be looking at, the sign of the times when I, the Messiah, I, God himself, have come to give you good news, to rescue you, to help you, to clean you from inside. So Jesus is saying, really, I suppose, never mind looking at the weather, You see a cloud and you see rain is coming. You don't see the wind, you see the effects of the wind, but you hear the wind, and you know it's going to be a hot day if it comes from the south. But never mind all of that. Look to me, Jesus says. Interpret what I'm saying. Discern why I am here on the earth, Jesus was saying. And I suppose maybe we could say to ourselves in these days, our days now, in the year 2024, when we talk about the weather, lovely day, isn't it? Nice day, rain is coming in a couple of hours. Maybe we should not be so interested in the weather, but we should be interested in the Lord Jesus. Yes. Well, there's no maybe about it, is there? Sorry, I phrased that rather badly. There is no maybe. There is no maybe. There is no should we. We must certainly look at the Lord Jesus. So maybe forget talking about the weather. Let's talk about Jesus. Otherwise, maybe Jesus could level that same accusation against us. He could bring that same charge against us, that we're more interested in the weather than we are in the Lord Jesus. No, as Christians, we must be more interested in the Lord Jesus than in any weather. Now, I'm not talking about the signs of the times. They are another matter. I haven't mentioned those. We're talking about the weather signs, clouds, wind, that sort of thing. But, well, let's talk about the Lord Jesus. Let's be more interested in the Lord Jesus. Let's not bother really about weather forecasting. Let's not bother so much about particularly what it says here on the online forecasts, because they can get it wrong. But the one thing that we must not get wrong is to ignore the Lord Jesus. So let's talk about him. Let's concentrate on him. And let's just leave the weather to do what the weather does.